Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. And it is still Produce Month. I am Kayla, and I am here with Sammi.
Hello.
And in this week's episode, we are going to be talking about sort of the differences between Korean produce and then the Chinese and Japanese versions of produce.
Yes. And
we're using Korean produce sort of as like the template original version since it did air in Korea first and then expanded into China and Japan.
Half of it is just CJ, taking their property and adapting.
Going elsewhere, yes.
Barely adapt. It is adapting because these shows are now just not the same show.
No. I mean, in China particularly, it's a different show now.
I mean,
different show.
While we're recording this today, both of the pick-me's were released for this year, right?
Yes, the Chuang 2021 and Youth with You 3 both released pick-me's today.
Which was exciting because Chuang never really had a pick-me.
Yeah, Chuang is back to not doing a yogurt commercial and now has an actual pick-me.
But update, the yogurt flavor this year is peach. Exciting. Exciting. We've updated the yogurt flavor. We now got peach.
We got new yogurt flavor for the new season.
Which again, are these new yogurt? They had a fucking sakura flavor at one point. Are they only now introducing a peach yogurt? What is this company?
I don't know. We don't even know if it's yogurt. Like, we don't even know what it is.
The more I look at it, the more I think it's milk, like a flavored milk.
I can't imagine drinking, like, what was the weird one? Pomegranate something flavored milk? Like,
I don't. Pomegranate yogurt also sounds a little weird to me.
It does. I'm like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. There's this weird drink that just decides it likes to sponsor all of them. Yeah.
But both of those, Chuang, again, Youth with You has some of the best pick-me's of any of the shows.
They do, really.
And this one is no exception. This one is amazing. I really love it. I don't think if it does it.
It also doesn't say pick me at any point in the song.
Yeah, it's the first one that does not say pick me. Exciting. Mm-hmm. I think we're finally going beyond that. Yeah. But yeah, the new seasons we haven't been watching, but we've been getting constant stream of updates. And it seems like it's going further. It's like taking the concept and going a little bit, tweaking it a little bit every season, and now it's a completely different show than original produce.
Yeah.
Which is exciting because I don't know. I think China has perfected being able to do a show for 18,000 years and still have it be popular.
Still have it be interesting.
Yeah, because Korea did so many changes so quickly, and it was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
It got boring.
By the time we got to season 4 of Korean produced, people were done with it.
Yeah, people were
we don't want this anymore.
Yeah, I don't want this. What else you got for me? And then China's on like season... Because we've had, 3 Youth with Yous, 3 Chuangs, plus the
4.
2 other seasons. No, plus the 2 other non-seasons. We're at 8 seasons of the show in China. They get 2 seasons a year.
And 2 seasons a year of the exact same show of the exact same gendered group now, which is ridiculous.
Also airing the exact same time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so stupid.
So, like, that's sort of what we're dealing, and that both of those shows are still distinct from each other.
Yeah.
Because I don't really confuse them with each other. I think Youth with You is still more of the competition show.
Chuang is going in a weird direction.
I think it's still summer camp.
It's weird summer camp, and now we're like international summer camp.
There's a lot of white people this season.
There's a lot of foreign. There's like at least 15 Japanese trainees on that season. There's a lot of like Russians for some reason.
Kayla. Well, I think what we've learned is that when you have 8 seasons, when you got 6 seasons already out of the way, which is already 600 trainees, and also another 100 going to another season, I think you kind of start to run out of new trainees.
You're out of people. You're out of people.
So I think you kind of have to start getting more. And I guess Japan. Well, now that Japan also restrictions.
There's a lot of people from Produced Japan, season 1, who are on Chuang 2021 right now.
Hey, you gotta adapt.
So we've got that. The older brother of June from Orbit is on Chuang 2021.
We love June from Orbit. Yeah. Love him. It's great. These seasons are they're very interesting to see that in comparison. So I mean that's the first difference is that China has managed to be able to make. I can see this running in China for years. I don't know if they can sustain
so many more years.
both of them. I'm not sure of how long they can sustain having two of the same show.
I think one of them dies at some point.
And genuinely, I feel like
I want it to be Chuang that dies because I like Youth with You better.
Yeah, I want Chuang to die mainly because they're now introducing so much weird. Because like. I don't know. Both of those shows have their ups and downs and their boring
Youth
ass
with You to me is still retaining at least it's retaining more of the original like essence it produced without going completely off the deep end like I feel Chuang kind of is doing the more it goes on. And I think Youth with You in particular, it does feel like it is more of the competition show, and I think it does get more like trainees who are in actual groups on it. I think Chuang goats like more of the not as well known people, but I think Youth with You somehow has more of a pull to people who have already debuted in groups in a way.
True. I feel like a lot of, in terms of ratings, I do hear that Chuang is more popular, but I think that they're starting to fall into a lot of the gimmicks. That was the downfall of producing Korea, because season 1 and season 2 in Korea were very much the same show with different genders. They were the same show. And they were probably the two biggest, most popular seasons of that show. Then you had 48 with the novel concept, but I think that was mainly the fact that like people that liked J-pop were really into it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And then
because I do think that like AKB48 did have like a somewhat of a fandom in Korea, so bringing that in at least sort of had a pull on like some people for that.
True. And then like, you can't really do that with China because all their AKBs have already started being a part of the show. AKB has been in every season. They've literally
used all of them now, like all of their AKB groups.
They might have used all the girls.
Yeah.
Because I think as the show has gone on, they got less AKB girls because I don't think there are any more left to put on the show.
Because they split that, what is it? Is it SNK48 the one?
Yes.
That Kiki and then the other girl who I don't remember her name, who's also in Bon Bon Girls.
Yes, I think
they came from the same group, both went on different shows and then both made the groups. Yeah.
Yep. But also like, yeah, that's weird. That's also interesting. And then they keep like bringing more for every season. Every season has more AKB girls. And they do better in China than they did in the Korean season. That's for sure.
They did do really well in Chinese produced, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that AKB is weird because I also don't know how much their training compares to actual trainees in China. Because they have not, like, the Korean girls get way more training, but who knows what the Chinese system is. So shall we start with just the differences in the music? That gives a segue to the difference in the music systems, which is...
Because how the music industry in each of these countries is set up and how it works, I think has a very large impact on how produces as a show in each of their respective countries.
And how it sort of acts and how it sort of has to adapt. Because in Korea, I mean, if you're a K-pop fan, you know the Korean system. Like, these are well-trained people.
For the most part.
Again, with exceptions, but they've at least had some sort of training. They at least have basic competency in singing, if they're singers, dancing, if they're dancers. I mean, all of them can somewhat dance. I don't think there's really many people on a Korean produce that are, like, completely, like, 2 left feet, can't, like, stand properly.
I'm saying... You get a couple every season. You get a couple,
but it's not like some seasons we've seen where I'm like, what is this dancing? There is no dancing.
What's going on?
Japan is one of the...
Japan. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about Japan.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm saying, like, there's always exception to the rule, but for the most part, most of the people that make it decently far in that show do not have to be taught the basics of dance. They get to be taught sort of, like, more advanced stuff of actually being in a group, and I think a lot of the training on a Korean produce is showmanship.
Yes.
It's stage presence. It's taking your talent and making it that people want to watch you in comparison to another group, because there's so many K-pop groups. Why am I wasting my time on this person when there's 8 other groups doing a similar concept?
The same thing.
Like 30 groups debut every year at this point, and it's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
It's so many groups.
And so it's like survival shows as a whole have existed essentially since the beginning of like K-pop, because
everyone was made. Oh, so many.
Like, go back to Big Bang was made on a survival show. Like 2 PM was on a survival show, and that is like something that has just been a part of the Korean music industry, like almost since its like existence.
Yeah, I think.
And
yeah,
the thing that produced, I think, added to it was that this is the first time the concept of a temporary group was introduced into the K-pop industry.
It was the first time like you were allowing multiple different companies to do it, because before that, the only time you would see people like interacting from different companies is before you'd get like a K-pop star or something, where it's like before they were famous, they did this show, and look, on the same seasons was this person who's in a different company.
Yeah,
you wouldn't get like Woollim trainees with FNC trainees with fucking a JYP trainee all doing this. Random ass trainees from like Brand New Music,
and the fact that it is a temporary group is the only reason that's allowed to happen, because these are idols who are they've signed like some type of a trainee contract with the company that they're under, so they can't just like take all these people and then say, well, sorry, now we're leaving your company to go to this other group. It's the fact that they're temporary and are eventually going to be allowed to go back to the company that they're in, is that's the only reason this can even happen in the Korean music industry.
And they know that companies, I mean, that's why you saw the evolution of the produce contracts. You go from really short non-exclusive contracts to slightly longer exclusive contracts to whatever the hell
really
IZ*ONE
long
has.
exclusive contracts.
Yeah. Whatever X1 was going to have a
X1
ridiculous
was going to have
contract.
A stupidly long, ridiculous contract, but like
those X1 boys were going to be
really lucked
to the
out.
brink.
The X1 boys really lucked out by the group getting disbanded after.
I think it was probably for the best, or else we would have just seen them constantly promoting.
I can't even imagine what, honestly, K-pop looks like right now if X1 didn't disband, because we have, like, how many groups? Like, 3 or 4 new boy groups that just don't exist, or maybe exist if X1 continues to be a group. It's just, like, bizarre.
Yeah, it's, because, like, would they have debuted them and then debuted person back into the...
because I don't think Woollim debuts Drippin', and I don't think that whatever company Bay173 debuts that group. Gravity might go forward without them. Ghostman doesn't have an X1, but like, and I don't think WeEye is a thing without.
No, WeEye we have to wait another year or 2, or no, it was 2 years. 2, 3? How many?
It's 2.5 exclusive, and then 2.5 unexclusive.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I think we would end up with like these weird mismatch of people. I don't know if we would have ended up getting a bunch of the groups we got last year.
Yeah.
Or if they would have just ended up being like 101, where it's like, no, they're going to debut solo.
Right.
Because 101 lucked out of like their entire span of time. Each of them, I think, in terms of actually being, promoting a group, they promoted 101 better than they did any of the other groups.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. A lot of people argue for IZ*ONE. IZ*ONE got more comebacks. Yes, but the IZ*ONE girls individually didn't do shit.
No one in IZ*ONE did individual stuff ever in IZ*ONE.
The only people that will do well, I think, are the people that had names beforehand. Chaeryeong has the fact that she was a JYP girl, and she has the sister in ITZY. She could probably do fine. Sakura was popular before this. Eunbi, popular beforehand. I think those kind of people will do well and could do well on their own.
Yeah, and like
everyone else, no.
Wonyoung and Yujin are definitely just gonna get put in a Starship Girl group and together, and that's just where they're gonna go.
Yeah, I think and then the thing with
Yana's probably going to Everglow. Like, I'm like 90% sure they're just putting her in Everglow.
Yeah, they're putting her in. I don't know what Yehua can do with her. Like, what they can't make another girl group that soon. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they have enough trainees to make another girl group. The thing with Yehua is I genuinely don't know where they are in terms of the fact of, like, they're both in China and in Korea, and there's a lot happening, and I'm confused, and I want a unique comeback. Give me a unique comeback, please.
We have to, like, completely change perspectives on Yeahwa when we talk about Korea produced and also Chinese produced, because it's, like, two separate companies, but, like, also that's the same company.
Yeah, I have to, like, think of, like, well, Yeahwa in Korea does not have the clout to just randomly debut another girl group. And then I'm just, like, switch aprons to, like, well, Yeahwa in China can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't know. Just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yes.
You're the JYP of this country, I think. That's the impression I get, but I don't know.
Yeah, that and banana culture in China.
Yeah, in comparison to banana culture in Korea.
Right.
But, no, in terms of, like, 101, they got hosting gigs. They got, like, solo stuff. They did a bunch of promotions by themselves or in smaller groups.
Yeah.
And that, like, allows
I get, like, occasional, like, group things for IZ*ONE, but, like, there's, like, really wasn't a lot of that at all.
Yeah, and I think that with 101, maybe it's just the fact that it's boy group versus girl group. They were so much more popular than any other produce group to a ridiculous extent. Where I'm just like, yeah, no, they were like 2 years less than IZ*ONE, but I know almost every single member of 101. I'm like, no, you had opportunities to be popular, some of them more so than others, but, like, you each got attention, and, like, no one seemed to have been, like, some more so, again, some much more so than others, and, like, I may not like all of them equally. No one does. Don't lie to yourself. Just saying, don't lie to yourself. But they promoted them very well, and that's why all of them can be soloists and be decently successful. The fact that we have Daniel,
101,
Jihoon,
I feel like with 101, the thing is like, if you were just casually into K-pop, you just by, like, I don't know, reading news articles or whatever, you would know a decent amount of members in the group, like, by not even being into 101. They're just knowing of their existence. You have to, like, really be into IZ*ONE to know more than, like, 2 or 3 members of that group, because they just aren't doing a lot outside of, like, actual group activities.
Look, the fact that we have Daniel and Jihoon and Ong Sung-woo and a bunch of these people, even, like, Jisung, managed to do well as a soloist off of 101 with nothing else. Like, it's not like a bunch of the X1 boys, which, like, now they're soloists, but they were in X1 and also previously part of a group. Like, they're only out of 101. They had nothing beforehand, and they're doing really well as soloists. And even, like, Daewee and Bae Jin Young, they're making they're decently very well known.
Sungwoon's a really good soloist now, because I think Hotshot's dead, but...
Hotshot is dead, but, you know.
But he's a good soloist now, too. I forgot about him.
Yeah. So, generally, I think that 101 might have been the most... And it's weird to say, because 101 didn't have the longest contract, and, like, they had a decently short... And they relatively didn't make that much music. But I do genuinely think that for their careers, they were established the most of all of them. Because even the girls from Iowa, they ended up doing very well for themselves. But that had nothing to do with produce promoting them.
Oh, yeah. Because they barely had time to be promoted, so...
Half of them weren't in one third of their comebacks.
Barely had time to do anything, so...
Exactly. So, like, the Korean music industry did decently well with that. And then you have China, where, like, idol music isn't even popular in China.
No, and that's, like, where it's very different, because it's, like, for Korea, because it's already such a well-televised, like, well-advertised, like, part of the culture there, that survival shows seems, like, very natural to, like, as something to be, the creation of the show seemed very natural for the K-pop industry in general. But for China, because idol music is so much less popular to begin with, it's not as much of, like, this is going to be popular for the general public because it's, like, a C-pop group, because that's not really what's mainstream in the music industry there to begin with.
Yeah. I think also what you find with the Chinese members of these groups is that a lot of them end up going solo or becoming actors. Because I think that's where you get a lot more recognition in China.
We've talked about the weird thing about actors who just also sing and release songs as being like a very popular thing in China.
Yeah.
Where it's like that's almost where the main, like that's more mainstream and popular than like C-pop as a whole. It's just these actors who are very popular actors and then also decide they want to sing.
The thing is also it's very difficult for us to know what is popular in China in that you get all this information secondhand.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't know what the charts are like in China. Maybe they're like, what is, because you see like, oh, this group did really well, they sold 100,000 copies. I don't know what that means in terms of China. I genuinely have no idea what that means. I think it's good.
Yeah.
But I can't speak with authority on that.
I don't know how it works.
If a K-pop group sold that much, that's insane. That's amazing. You did great, sweetie.
Right.
If a C-pop group does that, I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means at all.
Genuinely can't say.
K-pop seems to be such a dominant presence in just like the Asian music industry as a whole. It seems for like in terms of like an international poll, everything seems to always go to K-pop because that's the most popular like country,
at least
like
in
music
the West.
genre. Yeah,
at least in the West.
And in a weird way, because thinking about it, like, you know, a lot of K-pop groups will also branch out to Japan, have Japan releases. Some of them occasionally release their songs also in Chinese. You don't see that with J-pop groups or C-pop groups really branching out into other countries. Other than that, it's only K-pop that does it because it's such this large presence that I think it seems natural for them to do it because they have a broader audience. But it seems like Chinese music and also like the Japan music industry is also, it's pretty centralized to like their own countries.
But also with that is that I also think you also have to think about it as terms of like how much of a market they have. Korea's in terms of market share, in terms of music, is very small. And to make any sort of like large money, they kind of have to go out.
Because
China
Japan
is insane.
Japan also is like
China has like the second biggest music industry in the world. Like they don't necessarily have to.
I think Japan does too. I think like in terms of like, I think physical music sales or something, it's like Japan is like way up there in terms of that. And I do think Japan does have a little bit more of an international like presence than
I think the thing
C-pop does.
Yeah, I think the thing with that is that China's, especially C-pop, is such a very young industry.
It's a weird genre.
It's a very weird genre.
Yeah,
I don't think it plays well in the West. In that
it doesn't.
I don't think I really like it. I have learned. I enjoy it mainly just because I like that kind of weird shit, and then like Kayla sort of learned to like it.
You really have to like Stockholm syndrome yourself into it. It's like a weird genre of music.
But once you do, you're in it. You're like, oh no, this is decent. And then the thing with J-pop is I think J-pop has, because of things like anime, because of like years of like people thinking Japanese culture is very cool.
Anime and the J-rock aspects of it, I think are very big.
J-rock is very, very popular here. And I think the thing with that is that people tend to seek that out. More so, like K-pop has to sort of branch itself out. I think Japan, it's been so long of just like people being into that kind of pop culture that they don't necessarily have to like put themselves out there. People will just look for it.
Yeah,
especially with the J-rock.
J-rock is not marketing itself to like Western audiences at all. They're just doing what they're doing, and then people are seeking it out more so than they're trying to sort of get international audience from it.
And then K-pop, on the other hand, is trying to get the international audience.
At this point, at this point, K-pop is very much like targeting Western audiences. Like, definitely in recent years, more so than they have in the past. But that's just become like a part of.
And I also
K-pop
think that's part of Produce. Produce, especially. Like, season 1 was all Korea. Season 2 was Korean international. They did international tours with 101.
They did. They were, like went to K-Con and everything, Yeah,
and then IZ*ONE did a bunch of Japanese releases, and I am positive X1, with things like Flash we only have one thing to go off with.
We got one mini album from X1.
We can only speculate, but with the way and all of the, I think you can gauge a lot of the direction of a produce group by the original songs done on the show, because they all kind of fit with, especially the finale songs, kind of like they're testing out to see what the vibe of the group's gonna be. And with the songs that they did with X1, I think that they were trying to push for like an NCT style, sort of pushing toward a foreign market.
I think if X1 had like actually lived out their contract, I think they release an English song at some point in their career. Like, I feel like that just seems on track for them. Especially being under, like, Mnet and everything, and, like, CJ, and, like, with Mnet being so prevalent in, like, the K-cons and everything.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just, like, that's, like, a direction I wouldn't be surprised with if they had gone that way.
No, and especially with 5 years, they would have done an international tour. I mean, obviously they wouldn't have, because not only did X1 disband, but also it would have been 2020.
In the coronavirus,
Yeah, also it would have been 2020, and I don't think that would have just dissolved itself anyway. But, but if things had gone the way...
This is an alternative universe.
In the alternative universe where, like, the group is fine, and also we get to live out the dreams of Mnet, they would have done multiple international tours. They would have come to America. They would have gone to, like, 4 cities in Europe and like 18 cities in Asia, because that's what international tour means for K-pop. But that's what they would have. I think that they would have been pushing that as more of an international group. Maybe not into Japan the way they did with. They already did that with IZ*ONE, and IZ*ONE would have still been promoting for like 2 years while also X1 was promoting.
Yeah.
So like they would have. I don't think they would have like put.
I don't think they would have gone heavy into Japan.
I think they would have gone heavy into like the Western market.
The Western market, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, again, Japan itself is an entirely different industry that does not care.
Oh, it is Japan is like just a whole nother like weird industry in comparison, because Japan has a relatively well established idol industry, but specifically for females, because you have like AKB48 and like Nogizaka 46 and these other similar groups where it's based on like idols interacting with fans, and that's like huge in Japan. They have AKB48 is in like every city, it's all over the place. But there isn't
and it's ridiculously popular too.
Yeah. There isn't an equivalent for male idols, really. All that they have in Japan putting out these male idol groups is the Exile Company, which and then also Johnny's Associates. And it's like there's the companies that are putting out idol-like boy groups, and that's really all there is there.
And I also partially think that's why K-pop boy groups do so well in Japan.
Because Japan doesn't have any
boy groups. You have to, like, I mean, I guess we're going to, like, girl groups especially a lot of the AKB girls, they have a very similar style, so, like, girl groups also do really well in Japan, but, like, the boy groups... They don't have boy groups.
The boy groups Japan does have. They're like old.
They're very old.
We have like mid to like late 30s, like 40-year-olds in these boy groups, and it's like so there's no like tweens, young boy groups in Japan.
Them tweens need like a steady supply of young men, and K-pop provides. And
because Japan has their age limit for produce Japan set between like 6. What is it? It was, I know the high-end cutoff for Japan was 30.
Jesus.
16 to 30. And I'm just like, I can't even imagine a 30-year-old going on, like, Produce in Korea. But that's, like, the average age of an idol in Japan, is they tend to be on the older side because they're coming from, like, Exile Company, who is, like, a pretty old, like, company at this point. And then they just, like... last longer, so they don't quite have, I don't think,
I mean, the thing with
as
Korea,
short of the shelf life for groups as Korea has.
Yeah, the thing with Korea is that the thing with boy groups in Korea, and partially girl groups, I think that the fact that the way it's established is that boy groups have to take a 2-year break to do military service.
Yeah,
that shortens your cutoff, because again, in a saturated industry, 2 years is death, essentially.
Yeah,
you haven't heard from someone in 2 years, that's bad. That's very bad. But
there's like almost no coming back from that.
No, and then girl groups, unfortunately, because of the way things are, that's also the same in Japan, because the AKB girls, you don't see 30-year-old idols.
No, the AKB girls start at like 13 to 14 years old and retire by the time they're like 25.
Exactly. Like
yeah.
The girl industry is similar to how the entire industry of Korea works. Because girls
when you're old, when you're old, no one wants you anymore.
When you're old, no one wants you.
Yeah.
And but like the boy, not necessarily, because the boy groups, if you're a popular boy group in Korea, you can become like an exile where you're doing this into your 40s. We still have Shinhwa.
They're does still exist.
Thriving, apparently. Mm-hmm. We still have, Suju's doing an anniversary album this year.
Like 15 years, yeah, for Suju.
I'm sorry.
TVXQ also still around and thriving, yeah.
Big Bang's still here, technically.
Yep, technically. I mean, let's be honest with ourselves. There's members of aespa that were, born around the time Suju debuted. Yeah.
I just want to put that into perspective for people.
Mm-hmm.
They're babies.
It's like the age thing. I think it's what is shortening the shelf life on the K-pop groups is it's the age thing for females, and then it's the military service for males. And so they have these two cultural things that are just in place that are gonna cut the life of a group short at some point.
The age thing for females is a sexism thing, so that
is a sexism thing.
That's constant in both Japan and Korea and China.
That's just an everywhere thing.
So
it's
that just does it for everybody.
Yeah.
The boy groups is really where I think that's why K-pop idols start so much younger. In China and in Japan, you're allowed to sort of have a childhood, and you can start at the age of 20 and be no, I can have a long career. If you start at 20 in K-pop, you're on the older side, so you'll only have, if you have a 7-year contract, by the end you're 27, you have to go into the military.
Yeah.
There's not that much you could push that back. You're already older than most of the people going into the military, who at that point, most Koreans do it 19?
Right after high school.
Right after high school, or
college.
I've seen it's either they do it right after high school, or they do 2 years of college, do it, and then come back.
Yeah.
So they do it when between 18 and 23 or 24, which is a reasonable time to do your mandatory military service. All these idols are going in way older than the average person.
Yeah.
They go in as close to 30 as they can get.
Mm-hmm.
Or unfortunately they're injured.
Oh, yeah, that's
because the
sad.
dancing is bad. The dancing, I think, destroys them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think generally that's why you see them start at 14, so they can have enough of a career that maybe when they come back after military service, they can continue. Though most cases are you don't. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to really do that. Because it's there isn't a lot of groups who have even
done that,
been successful at it. Yeah,
the ones I can think of are from the big companies. Who knows what'll happen to Big Bang?
Every single SM boy group has done it, because
every single SM boy group has done it. I feel 2PM's gonna do it when they all actually exit the military, which will happen soon.
B2B's in the middle of doing that right now.
B2B's in the middle of it. They're probably gonna be fine.
B1A4 weirdly came back from it as well.
Yeah, but B1A4 came back with it 3 out of 5.
B1A4 came back as A3.
A3, everybody.
Yeah.
All the bands are able to do it. C and Blue's doing it. FT Island's gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And Flying is gonna do it, even though half of their singers are fine.
Both their singers are fine, because my son's already and Sanghyeon is too injured to serve in the military.
That poor man. And I think that groups I genuinely think if GOT7 had wanted to continue, they could have done it.
They could have,
if they wanted to continue, which they didn't, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of groups could do it. I think Highlight would have been able to do it if they hadn't fallen apart. I think
if Highlight hadn't lost their one member who wrote all of their songs, I think Highlight probably could have done it. Yeah,
I think that boy groups have this ability to I think, and it's a difference inherently between the boy group and the girl group fan bases. Of boy group fan bases, when you have them,
you have them forever.
You have them forever. There's groups that there's groups in. And I think both of us have that, where there's groups that I will follow until forever, essentially. They've gotten my trust that I will follow you forever.
Yes.
Girl groups, on the other hand, unfortunately, a lot of their success comes from mainstream popularity, and that will go. That will fade. You will be replaced by someone newer, younger, and supposedly better than you.
Yeah.
And what sticks around in the overall fan base are soloists. Female soloists,
have pretty long-lasting careers,
yes.
Yeah.
Whereas K-pop, and then male soloists, kind of, it depends on what group you're coming out of. Oh, right. Also another boy group that did it was SHINee, who we did not mention in.
Well, we said all SM boy groups.
Yeah,
so
but I feel bad that we did not mention SHINee by name, who just had a comeback. And like, just want to mention them by name. SHINee just did it. They're thriving again. Sure. Well, relatively thriving.
Relative thriving, yes.
But yeah, so I think that, I mean, what Produce was able to do was to get back onto the topic of the J-pop industry, what Produce was able to do was make a J-pop boy group.
Yeah, I think that's a new avenue that just exists in J-pop now, to make these idol boy groups, because there is just a lack of them in the Japan music industry as a whole. And to
make them using the K-pop method, because I don't, like, the J-pop industry is very different than the K-pop industry, and the way JO1, and even groups like Orbit, and the branch groups from that season are made, is they seem very much like K-pop groups, K-pop styled groups. Big music videos, flashy, like, songs, and a bunch of all that, and a lot of very personable behind the scenes content. A lot of, they seem like they're just doing, not in a bad way, obviously, in their own, adapted to Japan, but, like, they're more K-pop-esque.
Yeah. Because I do think, well, Johnny's Associates, and I think Exile, I'm not as 100% sure on that, they do have, like, actual trainees, because a couple people from Produce were, like, a Johnny's Associate trainee or something in the past, so they also do a similar trainee system. I don't know how similar that is to what they do in K-pop, but I know it does exist in a weird, like, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, which the Produce Japan as well, it's different because because we've talked about this in episodes in the past, how they're casting kids off the street, essentially. And so this is like the opportunity it's like a first opportunity for, like, teenagers or, like, younger kids in college who, if they want to pursue, like, music, being an idol in the music industry, like, this is a way for them to do that. Whereas in Korea and China, that road's, like, blocked off, because you have to be usually
young,
well-known. You have to be young, you have to be well-known, you have to be in a company, you have to be in a group already in China from a lot of those shows. So
yeah. And I think the other thing with that is also, like, we saw the gap that happened, and this was bigger gap than most of any other Produce season, which is the gap between Japan ending and J01 debuting. That was a decent-sized gap, where I genuinely think that they just trained them. They trained them like they would a K-pop
And
idol.
I'm pretty sure they trained them in Korea. They trained them in Korea, too, I'm pretty sure, for at least some portion of it, too.
I mean, it is CJE&M. They probably have better facilities. Like, they're just like, yeah, just come over here. We're just gonna do it here. We already have it built here.
Yeah.
We might as well bring you over. Yeah, I genuinely think they just went through, like, a shorter boot camp.
Looking at just, like, just generally, like, Produce Japan as a whole, and, like, the quality of performance we were giving there, and the absolute, like, increase in quality we got when J01, officially debuted.
The biggest thing I will say is, go back and watch the finale performances, because we just got Young and Grandmaster for their anniversary. Go back and
do
watch
a comparison.
The finale. And go back and watch what they just released. It's the same song, same choreo, same people. There's, like, a couple people that aren't there, but for the most part, it's the same people. And look at the difference.
It's a big difference.
I mean, they're not, I would still say that J01 they're on the level of most K-pop boy groups, but, like, they're not, like, the top tier of, like, truly incredible at everything.
Right.
But again, that will come with time. And they're very entertaining. They're very fun to watch. And you can tell that they got training. And I think they took essentially a decent amount of time to train them, where in Korea you'd have, like, I like to compare it to what they did with take another thing like Mnet did. Mnet just did Island. Island already had trainees. They debuted those trainees like 2-3 months after the show ended. We're like, is this, because me and Dan watched that show, and it ended in, like, October or September. They debuted by November. And I'm like, oh, are they just gonna debut? How are they gonna debut this year?
I know, because I was like, do they have time to debut them before the end of the year? Because it was like Island just ended. I was like, do they like? Is there like? Are they actually gonna push them out this year? Because it seems like there's not enough of the year left.
And they did. They pushed it out. They didn't even do it in December. They did it in November. Because they had to get them.
They had to get them in before all the year-end awards show.
They will actually be counted for next year's awards for actual debuts because they didn't count this year. They debuted slightly too late for that.
Oh, too late. Sad.
But they debuted early enough to do all of the end of the year award shows. And I'm just like,
so they were just there.
They were also there, and I was just like, okay, cool. Good for them, I guess. But like Mnet and CJ&M have the ability to push them out quickly.
The turnaround on the produced groups are also like a similar like short. Couple of months, yeah.
And then like the extended time that they took with J01 makes me think that that's what they did. That they just did a like full course boot camp because they also got better on camera. They looked awkward on that show, and they got so much. Oh yeah,
they got.
And
so
that's
much
like
better.
Another difference between that and Korea and China, because China looks a little bit awkward, especially the ones that don't have that much experience. But like a lot of them have experience in other groups; they just look natural. The Korean ones, they got media training.
They do.
They know how to do this. They have media training.
That's just the thing that they give to trainees these days, because like you need to know like how the cameras and like I don't know music shows work and everything and whatever.
And just so like what to say, how to not look completely awkward when just talking
not look like stupid,
to a camera. Like, and they seem very personable and they seem very natural. Japan, they seem natural, but it's that natural awkwardness. Like, they seem very awkward to the camera because they don't know what they're doing.
They don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun. What's our next show differences. I think we talked about that a lot. I think we already talked about that in general, that, like, Korea, it has destroyed that industry. We're going to continue to see them happen.
Yeah.
The show will continue in a different format. We have Girl Planet?
Girls Planet 999?
Girls Planet 999, that one.
It's just produced on steroids. It's like, that's all it is. It's produced with 3 countries and like double the, so many more people. And it's just like, that's all it is. We've already rebranded it into a different show that's the exact same show.
Not excited.
No.
And then you even have, again, I think that they're going to do more of a similar thing where it's like you had shows like Island. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a similar show with other people, or if they did something, or they will just continue to do these kind of shows
forever. I think companies are going to continue to just go to Mnet, just like, hey, air our survival show for our new group or whatever. Like, yeah. Because they've done that for a lot of other companies, so like I feel like that's just gonna continue.
And like I'm okay with that, genuinely, because again, what you get is a permanent group, and I'm more okay with getting a permanent group out of this than I am with getting more temporary groups. I hope temporary groups.
I would rather get a permanent group out of a survival show than a temporary.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like the period of temporary groups, because. There's no temporary, other than IZ*ONE, I don't think there's any temporary groups left, because One the Nine just got finally ended.
Yeah.
X1 was the only one that's supposed to have now. No more produce groups are happening, and I think that we're done with
I think we might be done.
Yeah, once IZ*ONE in the beginning of April disbands.
So, sometime in April,
done.
Yeah.
We're done, and I hope that continues on, because I don't want any more. I think that phase of K-pop should just have ended.
Yeah, did Produce kill the temporary? It introduced the temporary group and then also killed the temporary group at the same time. I think,
again, what happened? They made the temporary groups too good. They manipulate. Again, I said this in the last episode. They manipulated them into existence by having it be like a perfect balance.
Yeah.
The group was too good. The group looked like a professionally made K-pop group. Because it was. The people had no say in it. So it was a professionally made K-pop group that could have been permanent.
Yeah.
Whereas a bunch of the other temporary groups, like J01, also that. Not necessarily saying that thing, but every other group that was not made in Korea has some imbalances. Because it was made by the public. And the public does not know what they're doing. You end up
public
every single Chinese season ends up with at least like 4 to 5 rappers.
When you give the public like the final say over the group, I feel like it's like that's always a bad idea because the public doesn't know what they're doing.
The public likes
they don't
rappers.
know what they want.
The public likes rappers too much. I think that's the problem because we end up with like 8 rappers.
Yeah, the Chinese public loves their rappers for some reason.
Yeah. And like at that point, I'm like, yeah, no, there's only so much you can do with this group.
Yeah.
Maybe we should not have
7 out of 9 rappers in a group.
Exactly. And then I like, again, I think we talked before that China almost has this show now perfected. That they know how, because they change the judges every season. They add new elements. They like at this point mix and match the elements of different shows that they want. Like, oh, we're gonna bring back the Pick Me. We're gonna take out the yogurt commercial.
Let's get rid of the yogurt commercial. Like, bring back the Pick Me.
Yeah, we're just like going back and forth about like they can now just have enough gimmicks that they can pick and choose like different variations of all the gimmicks.
Because I feel like they went through a couple seasons where they threw in all of the gimmicks, and now we're just like, well, wait, we don't need to throw in every single gimmick. So, but they have enough of them now that they can bring them back as they please. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is interesting. That I wonder if they'll figure the Chinese produce will figure itself out, and someone will do the same gender group 2 years in a row, so we can get off of the same gendered group airing every year. Yeah. Yeah. Because I do think that that's a better idea for both of those shows, is to be airing different gendered seasons at the same time. Yeah. Because you're competing, you have like your competition for trainees goes down because you don't have to send like double the trainees to 2 shows at the same time. Like,
it's probably for the best if they stop.
It's for the best if someone just did like another boy group season next year, and like we just like get out of this like hole that we're in with it essentially.
Yeah, it is odd. It is also overall bad because it is just the same show airing at the same time, and I do get them a little bit confused.
I get them recommended to me on YouTube all the time, and I was like, well, I just have like 2 of the exact same show.
And then like you remember like, oh, I saw this performance. Was that what
show are you
from? Was it?
Yeah. I think the only reason I can keep apart Chuang 2020 and Youth With You 2 is because we watched them not at the same time. Like, we watched Youth With You 2, and then we watched all 3 seasons of Chuang. Yes. So there was enough of a gap there that I remembered it. If I was watching them both at the same time, or like one after the other, they would be almost identical shows to me.
Yeah. It is just like odd. It's yeah, because they aired at the same. Oh no, not necessarily, because they also tended to air at different This is, I think, last season too, that they had the same girl groups. It's odd because I think the problem was that because Chuang always alternated, and then Youth With You had 2 male seasons, which ended up putting them at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, if we were watching them in order of premiere, which thank God we didn't, that would have been very bad.
That would have been horrible.
In order of release was just gonna be
I can't even imagine watching Youth With You 1 back to back with Chuang 2019. Like, what a time that would have been.
And then we go to Chuang 2020, and then to Youth With You 2.
Oh my god, that would have been horrible.
It seems like a bad idea for us.
It seems like a really bad idea.
Alright. And so then you have Japan, which I think should... We haven't seen any of the seasons. We only have 1 season to go off of. We have
1 season to go off of it, like pre-season for the one that's airing this year, which isn't... We don't have really anything to go off of for that yet, so... Except for the fact they're eliminating like 40 other trainees before the show even airs, so...
Which I hate. I hate that we're getting like a very small pick-me.
I know. And like, I'm assuming like... It is a weird gimmick, but I do think it probably is a COVID-related restriction.
I think
they can't have that many people there, and this is like a way around it, but it's still sad. Sad for them.
Yeah, it was just... This season's going to be real sad, because I think the COVID restrictions might be... They're much stricter in Japan than they are in China.
Yeah, because Japan got hit harder with it later than China.
Yeah.
So, like, Japan's in like a weird, like, more peak period right now than they were,
and who
earlier.
knows what's going on in China?
Honestly, no idea, because who knows?
Who knows? But apparently they're just doing 2 of these shows with 200 trainees. So
they're just still going. Fine. We're just still going on with that. So.
Yep.
Great.
So, yep. All right. So what's the takeaway from all of this? I'm gonna say right now, I think foreign produce is better.
Foreign produce is better, and foreign produce is still thriving, while Korean produce is dying. Dead. So,
well, I mean... the thing with Korean produce, I think Korean produce wouldn't have been able to sustain itself every year anyway, because you would have ended up with, like, 5 produce groups at the same time, which I don't think K-pop could sustain.
No.
Genuinely.
Not at all.
And, like, I think Korean produce never figured out how to make the show interesting with adding new elements. It always just sounded like gimmicks and boring.
Yeah.
At least with China, they're doing something weird. They're doing something different. And it's a weirder show.
It is a weirder show, for sure.
Genuinely, we just did a video on the weirdest performances of that show.
More than half of those are
Most
from China.
Most of those are from China. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry. You couldn't do that in Korea. These trainees would not put themselves in these situations.
No.
They would not have.
Can you imagine Korean produce trying to do PPAP? Like,
no. Could you imagine the center of Korean Pick Me deciding that PPAP with other highly ranked members?
Can you imagine like Kang Daniel? Like, just imagine the Get Ugly group in Produce Season 2, just performing PPAP.
Yes, the equivalent. That is what happened on that show. The equivalent of the Get Ugly team performed PPAP. All of them. Very highly ranked people. 3 of them are in the final group.
3 of them are in 9%.
Yep. Oh God, that would have been interesting.
That would have been a time.
Daniel doing the coon part.
Oh yes.
Weirdly aggressive.
Way too aggressive.
But like, yeah, no. Chinese produce is weird, but I also think that's because C-pop is weird.
C-pop is very weird.
I think that's how you can keep that show interesting. It gotta be a little weird.
It's gotta be weird.
It's gotta be weird, and it always keeps you guessing. Like, what are they gonna do this season?
I know, like, I'm interested every time I go look at the performances, like, what weird song are we doing this year? Like,
yeah,
there's gotta be one in here somewhere.
And then the thing is, Korean produce could never do that. It was too by the books, it was too by the numbers.
Yeah. It takes itself very seriously, Korean produce.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what Japanese produce this year is going to be, because we do only have 1 season to go off of. And so I am very interested to see if it is still going to be very, like, basic, like produce season 2, like, again. Or if we're going to get anything weird and interesting out of it, other than eliminating 40 of them before the show even airs. But I am interested to see if Japan is going to start throwing in gimmicks, or if it's going to keep it relatively, like, simple produce format.
Yeah, I kind of want them to keep it simple for, like, 1 more season. Just, like, establish what you're going to do, and then maybe slowly add changes.
I did hear a rumor that season 3 is supposedly supposed to be a female group. I don't know if that's true or if it'll work at all, really. But I would also be very interested to see what a female season of Produce Japan looks like.
Because didn't we find out that they are also affiliated with AKB?
So, yeah, so Lapone Entertainment, which is the company that manages J01, is like a joint CJ E&M company plus a person who, like, manages one of the AKB, like, offshoot, like, city subunits. I think, like, it's HKT and Z, it's like one of them.
So what I could see, and this is a theory I had with that, is that I could see them actually partnering again with AKB, and all of the trainees are AKB girls.
Yeah.
And that would just make a quote-unquote ultimate AKB subunit, which will be the 1 season I don't watch.
Yep. It would be, yeah, I'm not as really interested at all
in that
if it's just like an AKB season.
Because that's the only thing I could think of, because so much of the idols in Japan are already so wrapped up with AKB that I don't know how you get 100 female idols that have no affiliation to them whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, like, I could see them doing that to do a female season, but I don't know how you're gonna do a full not AKB female season. And also, that group would have had to be Girl Crush.
It's NMB48 is the company that they're sort of under. Or that's like, it's a joint CJE&M plus like the company that also manages.
I mean, we know that CJE&M already has relationships with the 48 brand. Anyway, so might as well. I guess
if they just take that, like, if they just make it for like that entire, like, whoever's in that, and then they just do a survivalship for them, and then make like a weird, like, offset subunit, like in the way, like, you know, Seven Senses it was in the whatever the. In China, they had like a special subunit, and then they somehow just make a group for that. Well, that would be weird.
It would be
but
weird.
I guess that, like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's how it goes.
It's the only thing I can think of where I'm like,
it's either that or if we're then, because then it's just we're pulling like girls off the street, like we're doing with the with like the male seasons for Japan.
Yeah, maybe.
Which I guess you could do that.
Yeah,
should be interesting.
Who knows? So, that's our Korean versus foreign produce.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, overall, I think my question is, what's your favorite of the countries? I think my favorite's... I don't know if you could include Japan, because you only have one season to go off
it's like, we got one season of Japan, and I love our one season of Japan.
I love it, but I don't know if I can say it's my favorite version of... Okay, right. So here's the question, because I think both of us kind of want to say China. Yeah. But in terms of that, which series, either Korean, Youth With You, Chwang, or Japan,
I definitely like Youth With You.
I think overall Youth With You, because it does have my favorite season, which is Idol Producer.
I like Idol Producer as much as Youth With You 1 is a little bit boring.
I will say,
I like it more than the... In comparison to Chwang 2019, which is the most boring of...
Yes.
Like, Chwang, like, official produce, it's much better than that. Yeah. And then I did really enjoy Youth With You 2 a lot. So I think I would definitely say that.
Overall, I would say that Youth With You is the best of all of them, which is funny because it is the only one not affiliated with CJE&M.
It's the unofficial produce, is the best version of produce.
Which is, I think, very funny that is the... Because, again, I think a lot of this all started with us with me essentially showing a lot of people Idol Producer. Mm-hmm. And then going from there of like, no, China Produce gets wild.
It started because it was like, you told me I want you to watch Idol Producer, and then we're just like, well, let's like see if we can watch just like a whole bunch of produce seasons, and then we found Japan incredibly easily accessible on YouTube. And then after that, and we got way too invested into that, we're just like, well, let's start watching the Chinese seasons, because now that we can just start down that hole. And then that turned into us watching Idol Producer and then the rest of Produce, and we were gonna give ourselves like 3 months, and then it turned into us watching them in like 3 weeks. 3 weeks, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
and this is where we are now, having watched 11 seasons of this show.
Yeah, it's a lot. It was a choice that we made to do this.
I don't recommend anyone else to do this.
Again,
ever.
if I could recommend 3 seasons of this show for you to watch, I would recommend season 2, Idol Producer, and Japan.
Yep.
Those are the top 3 seasons I always recommend people watch. And if you want to watch a female season, I would say Chwang 2020.
Yeah.
Because
2020 is pretty good.
Because also, you don't need any... Don't even think of that as a produce show. Think of it as just a bunch of girls having a fun summer camp experience.
Princess Summer Camp is Chwang 2020.
Princess Summer Camp experience does not matter.
Yes.
So overall, I think those are the top 3 seasons to watch. I think those are the 3 best seasons, and they're all kind of the same season.
They are. It's just Produce Season 2, and then Japan's version of Produce Season 2, and then China's version of Produce Season 2.
Which went off the rails.
Yeah.
Has some of my favorite people. All of those have great people on it.
Great people, all of those seasons.
Yeah. But I genuinely think that Korean Produce was gonna die anyway.
Yeah, it was on its last legs with Produce X, I think. So if, like, voting manipulation hadn't even come out, I think they might have gone, like, 1 more year, and then it would have been done.
I think the problem was going to end up being we have too many active groups at the same time, because they would have ended up having IZ*ONE, X*ONE, and another one.
Yeah.
And maybe another one, because depending on if they would have done one in 2021.
Oh, God.
Because that would have been like, they would have almost had...
We would have 4 overlapping groups.
4 overlapping groups competing with each other.
Oh, my God.
Because they would have had 2 same-gendered groups overlapping with each other. They would have had IZ*ONE competing with this new one, and then X*ONE competing with this new one. Mm-hmm. You would have just made your own group's competition.
Great.
It seems like a bad idea.
Wonderful. Because I remember, this was a thing that I remember happened at some point where it was like the big entertainment companies were trying to boycott Mnet and like the mamas and like just generally Mnet because they were like, now that you're creating K-pop groups, like you're direct competition with us and like we don't want to be associated with that anymore.
Yeah, because I know that SM was doing that, and then YG has a weirdly complicated relationship with Mnet even to this day.
Yeah.
So
which is it's gotten better because like now YG groups are on stuff and like Icons on Kingdom and whatever. So it's like it's better, weirdly better now, but it's like a lot of the big entertainment companies have like weird like but I guess understandable beef with Mnet. So
yeah. Because CJE&M, if you look at it as a whole, is a ridiculously big conglomerate in Korea anyway. It does half of the dramas that you think are good. Or CJE&M, half of like the shows, they have a lot of control. So them making their own groups, obviously they're going to have so much power to make them popular. So overall, I think it might have been better that it ended when it did.
Honestly, like, in a weird way, like, yes.
I mean, it's bad for X1. Feel bad for them.
It's bad for them, but also, like, more than half of them just turned around real fast and re-debuted in another group. Yeah, so, like, and they're probably better off in those groups, like, now than they would have been, like, 5 years in X1, and then, like, I don't know, figuring something else out, like, 5 years later in their career at that point, like... So I feel like none of them ended up, like, badly because of the X1 disbandment, really.
Alright. Anything else?
I think that's probably it for this episode.
Alright, that was a shorter episode, thankfully.
So this is our, I don't know, Korean versus foreign produce episode. So we have one more episode for Produce Month coming next week, which is going to be... the future of the music industry in a post-produce world.
Oh god, so, the world we live in.
Yep. That'll be a fun time. So if you like the episode, and you're listening to us on like a podcasting platform, we are also on YouTube where we're posting fun clip videos all the time, like every week as well. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, we are also available on all major podcasting platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everything like that. We also have a Twitter and a K-pop collection Instagram, both of which are not incredibly active, but we do tweet about when our episodes come out. So if you want to know,
not particularly active.
They're not particularly active.
Let's get more on that.
We do tweet about when our videos come out on the Twitter, though. So if you would like to know when our episodes come out and are on Twitter a lot, it's good to follow the Twitter, at least. But yes, we will see you next week for the finale of Produce Month. Bye.
Bye.